Welcome to Irish Socialist Republican News, a new broadcast from Irish Socialist Republicans going out from Dublin City, discussing news and events for the Socialist Republican analysis from here in Ireland. Today we're going to be speaking to Pádraig from Anti-Imperialist Action about a number of campaigns the organisation are currently working on. First up, Pádraig, recently Anti-Imperialist Action and Lasser Yarrig organised a public meeting in Dublin with Leila Khalid from the Popular Front of the Liberation for Palestine. The meeting was focusing on Nakba and the Great March of Return. Could you tell us something about that today, please, Pádraig?
The 3rd of June 2018, Anti-Imperialist Action in conjunction with Lasser Yarrig organised a meeting in solidarity with the people of Palestine. The meeting was organised a few weeks ago and was held in the Teachers Club. Leila Khalid from the PFLP, a Marxist-Leninist organisation from Palestine, was called on Skype and gave a rundown of the recent protests and the March of Return in Palestine. In the weeks coming up to the meeting, the Israeli government put pressure on the Teachers Club and also sent a letter to the Free State Department of Education to try and get the meeting cancelled. However, the meeting went ahead with a packed room. Leila Khalid spoke about the recent protests in Palestine, the March for Return, the right of the Palestinian refugees to return to Palestine, and the ongoing occupation and brutalisation of the Palestinian people there. Afterwards, there was a lively discussion and questions and answers with Leila. And hopefully in the next few months, Anti-Imperialist Action, along with Lasser Yarrig, are to organise meetings in solidarity with the people of Palestine.
Pádraig, Anti-Imperialist Action have been very active in highlighting the struggle in Palestine and in particularly building solidarity with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Recently, Anti-Imperialist Action took part in a boycott Zionist goods in Dublin. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
So about 2 weeks ago, a number of Irish Socialist Republican activists organised an action in Marks and Spencer's in Dublin City Centre. So a number of activists went into the shop. We filled up bags of goods from Marks and Spencer's, and the majority of which were produced in Israel. We brought them to the counter, and once we were at the counter, we made it known to the people at the desks and to the manager that we were boycotting Marks and Spencer's, that the workers in Marks and Spencer's should also not handle any goods from Israel. We pointed out to the workers that in the 1980s, Dunn Stores workers were instrumental in the boycott apartheid South Africa campaign at the time, which was a successful campaign. So we believe that the BDS campaign is the best way to show solidarity with the people of Palestine, and ultimately it'll be up to the people of Palestine to liberate themselves through organisations such as the PFLP, with their activists in Ireland, through the boycott campaign and through people refusing to handle goods from Israel. That's one of the best ways of us to show solidarity with the people of Palestine.
Ulsterisation, normalisation and criminalisation is a three-pronged strategy implemented by British imperialism in Ireland since the 1970s. At the moment, it seems to be going hell for leather with that strategy across the 32 counties. For example, we have successive English royal visits coming to Ireland, not least the likes of Charles Windsor, but now also Harry Windsor and Meghan Markle off the back of Elizabeth Windsor's trip here in 2011. We have units of the British Army and military such as the Red Arrows coming to Ireland to take part in air displays, which is obviously a big propaganda victory for the British imperialism in Ireland. And we now at the moment currently have a Welsh singer named Kirsten Osborne touring Ireland, who's styled as the sweetheart of the British Marines, who will be singing at the British Armed Forces Day in Belfast at the end of the month in the occupied 6 counties, and currently touring all of Ireland. So these things are just all part of a wider strategy of normalisation, including the showing of the royal wedding recently on RTE. Would either of you like to talk about Anti-Imperialist Action's work to combat normalisation in Ireland?
I think when it comes to the issue of normalisation of British rule in Ireland, you have to look at it in the international context as well. So Anti-Imperialist Action have been involved in organising meetings and bringing awareness to different conflicts around the world, some of them very complicated conflicts such as in Donbass and Syria. These in one way are very complicated situations and very complicated conflicts, but at the same time one of the major contradictions that exist is the influence of imperialist powers, and imperialist powers trying to have influence in certain certain countries and certain areas of the world. And if you look at those two conflicts, just for example, Britain is involved in those two conflicts. Now, Britain was, obviously, we know as Irish people, a huge empire at one stage. It might necessarily be the same empire it was, but it still exists as an imperialist country, and it has imperialist interests across the world. So Britain has a strategic interest in the north of Ireland, a military and political interest in the north of Ireland. But also, when these conflicts around the world are becoming more sharp and more numerous, the south of Ireland is as much a strategic interest to Britain as the north. So all these points of normalisation, royal visits, singers who sing for the British Army abroad, to have them over in the south of Ireland, these are all tactics used by the British establishment to normalise and to condition people's perspective on what Britain's role is in Ireland. Is Britain's role in Ireland an imperialist country? Does it have imperialist interests in Ireland? Or is it a friendly neighbour who's giving us a hand with military activities, economic activities, whichever way you want to look at it? So we have to say, is Britain Ireland's enemy or is Britain Ireland's friend? And I think you have to look at it as in an international context as much as a national context.
That's very interesting, Pádraig. Could you tell us a bit more about Anti-Imperialist Action's campaign against the presence of the Red Arrows at the upcoming Bray Air Display?
So over the past year, Anti-Imperialist Action have been involved in opposing British royal visits to Ireland, organised demonstrations against it, and also we campaigned against RTÉ's showing of the English royal wedding. So even though this didn't cost anything to the Irish taxpayer, there was a reason why the British establishment and their media gave free coverage of the English royal wedding. Again, with Brexit and Britain holding on to the remnants of its empire, is still trying to propagate itself as a world imperialist power. So that was one of the reasons why we campaigned against that. The Bray Air Display, the Red Arrows have been invited over to the display itself. So we think, again, this is just part of another policy by the British establishment to normalise British military activity in Ireland. So there's a local campaign developing against it, and we hope that as many anti-war activists, Irish Republicans and Socialist Republicans will gather behind the anti-imperialist action and demonstrate against this display of basically British jingoism and British militarism in Ireland.
Thanks, Pádraig. On another issue, Anti-Imperialist Action, as well as being very active on highlighting the national and social questions in Ireland, is also actively campaigning on the local level on issues that face the working class. And in particular, I know that you're involved with the Starry Plough Martial Arts Club, creating an alternative to capitalist and imperialist culture in Ireland. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the club and how it came about and what its aims and objectives are.
So a number of Socialist Republicans who came from a sporting background have an interest in martial arts, and being inspired by different revolutionary groups in Europe such as Jugendwiderstand and Gen Folket, we decided to start a martial arts club, the Starry Plough Martial Arts. So we just believe in developing a revolutionary physical education culture. We also believe, especially now with the past few weeks, there's been high profile cases of young women being physically attacked on the streets, and we believe, especially for young women, that they should have the confidence to be able to walk their own streets, and that it's important that everyone's in a position to defend themselves from attacks from whatever section of society. And we hope to develop this club in the next few months and years, hopefully.
Thanks, Pádraig from Anti-Imperialist Action, for speaking to us today on Irish Socialist Republican News. This broadcast is going out live from Dublin City, and we hope to be broadcasting again every week, giving you a Socialist Republican view and analysis on events taking place in Ireland today. Cúra míle mágat.